Hi, friends. Thanks for watching. I just wanted to comment on a phenomenon that I've observed throughout life, my own self, and I was talking with one of my sisters. So there's this it seems to make sense that if the government just did everything, if the government paid for everything, paid for housing, paid for school, paid for medical care, then everything would be fine. And uh, on paper, that looks great. Uh, but my experience is that the good people out there are generally not going to want to be the people in charge of government systems. Government systems is a soul killing, um, bureaucratic nightmare. And they do that to their employees, from what I observe, as well as to their clientele. Like I've been in the system off and on. Gone to get food stamps when I couldn't get work in San Francisco as an office worker, and there was just a lot of competition, and I wasn't glamorous, so it made it very difficult to get employment. And because of my persistent chronic fatigue, Lyme disease, thyroid problems, adrenal problems, polycystic ovarian syndrome, low growth hormone. Like I've got all this whole avalanche of health issues, which I think is due to persistent Lyme disease. Anyway, I've been uh, in the system. I get Medicare, and I've been accessing resources for disabled people. And from what I've observed of providers, whether from whatever, all the providers that anybody in my demographic can access, it's bureaucracy, and there's a few really good, honest people there, but for the most part, everybody's there for the paycheck, and um, it's a difficult job. Like the paycheck that they're getting they've got to deal with relentless, merciless bureaucracy and um, unpredictable things. Like one moment the government's shut down, the next moment the government has new rules, the next moment the government changes its software, and so employees have to learn completely new format in 24 hours. So government employees are dealing with crazy systems of a socialist bureaucracy. It is bureaucracy. And when I was talking or emailing with my older sister, she was like, "Don't you think socialism, don't like, are you sure socialism isn't a good thing?" And if we look at um, things like Medicare or the military or whatever, it is a socialist paradigm. Um, like people have qualified and they're getting certain types of services. And you would think that it would be operating off of an efficient model, an effective model, but it's not. The model that government bureaucracy works on is what you've experienced at the DMV, what you've experienced with government programs. Government programs is basically a socialist model. And it's weird because progressive liberals are like, well, if we had the government running my um, free college education and free health care and free housing, if we had the government running, everything would be fine. And what people don't realize is when the government is in charge, they drop the ball. They either unintentionally drop the ball or deliberately drop the ball because honestly, people who are in the system are regarded as useless eaters. I'm sorry to be the first person to tell you, but um, it is a constant struggle to make sure all your bases are covered for when you're dealing with the government, the forms, the new forms, um, the forms that didn't get to you in time and that's due yesterday, and yet they're going to lose your forms for the next 2 3 weeks, month, and not have any accountability, and have you feeling like they got you over a barrel, and it's going to be your fault, even though you did give them the forms 5 times. Um, so, anyways, I just want to say socialism is not the answer. My progressive liberal friends think that if we have the government taking care of everything, that my progressive liberal friends and family thinks um, that it would be people like them that would be running the government. My progressive liberal peers think that if it's a socialist world, it will be people like them that's going to be the people working, the people administering the benefits, and it's not the um, the profile uh, the profile of a government worker is not like you, the progressive liberal idealist. That's not who a government worker is. The government worker, while they may say they care about the environment, while they may love their pets, while they may be vegetarian or vegan, and be up on LGBT rights, even though they will talk this talk, when it comes to your form and all the other clients' forms, they could care less about your human rights. They could care less about your dignity. And that is what socialism is known for, and it degrades into communism or fascism. And I know there's all this hype about how Sweden's so great, or Denmark's so great, or wherever socialist country is so great, uh, because they have socialism. And keep in mind, those are different countries than the United States, for one. So those places, I bet they have similar bureaucratic horribleness, but I bet it's not even that as bad as it is in the United States. And I'm just speculating because, of course, I've not experienced socialism in France or Denmark or Sweden, although I have heard of something called greenwashing, where there's this idealism of uh, all things socialist or whatever in Europe. But so an American doing the socialist thing, an American doing the entitled mindset, if I may be allowed to use that. Because when I was a kid, I knew there were kind of there was a spectrum of people that I saw, and I was going to what's called public schools, so I didn't go to private school. So you would have the people that the kids that were rich and they had fancy clothes and they went away skiing and went away for the summer, and okay, so you had the rich kids, and then you had the working class, middle class kids where the parents didn't do all the fancy vacations and the fancy clothes, and um, so and that was across all races and stuff, and so maybe that was maybe the less cool kids. And then there were the kids who lived in the projects, and so their rent was paid through public assistance, their food was paid through public assistance, and so it would be, so the kids who lived in the projects, I mean, for the most part, I knew some Asians that lived in the projects, and I knew some Black people that lived in the projects, and probably white people too. I mean, I knew poor white people, like a kid in second grade didn't have enough paper, didn't have loose leaf paper. So he would always ask me, can I have some loose leaf paper? His parents wouldn't provide him with school supplies, and probably lent him a pen, you know. So uh, I never observed Black kids whose parents didn't provide loose leaf paper, in the second grade, but it probably has happened. But my point is that we think that the government if we had socialism, we assume as Americans, like we assume the idealistic progressive liberal assumes that they project that it's the nice, decent person like themselves that's going to be that government employee, and it's not. If we had a socialist world, you know who's going to be clawing their way for that job to be the giver of benefits? It's usually not a nice person. It's usually kind of a very selfish person. And I would say possibly a sociopathic, psychopathic person. That's who the government hires. That's who the government wants. The government does not want a progressive, liberal, idealistic, kind, generous, fair person. Does not want you to be their employee. So if we have a socialist country, it's going to be run by fascist-minded people. It's going to be run by um, uh, people who like authority. It's going to be run by authoritarians, and that's the unfortunate mindset that progressive liberals have. Progressive liberals think that if the government was socialist, it would be employed by people like them, and that all the socialist employees would be fair, kind, generous, humane, humanitarian uh, human beings, but governments hire authoritarians. And I'm not saying governments are hiring, like the US government hires people who are blatantly abusive. Governments just hire the people who are going to represent their interests. And whether a government is socialist or capitalist or whatever, the employer wants somebody who's going to benefit them. An employer is not going to be hiring an employee who benefits the people. It's just not going to happen. The manager who got that position did not get that position because they were idealistic humanitarians who served the people. You're not going to find somebody who's going to serve you in the government. And that's why I believe we need a free capitalist uh, culture, political system. I don't believe in crony capitalism. Like, it's the craziest thing. People are like, well, you want Monsanto to rule the world? Of course I don't. Crony capitalism, nepotism, favoritism is not capitalism. It's fascism. And it's weird because, like, progressive liberals think that um, entrepreneurship and commerce is automatically evil, when that's not. I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand because it's like people I know who have their own little entrepreneur business. Somehow they're like, yeah, capitalism is bad. And I'm like, but you're making money as a capitalist. You're not giving away all that craft work that you've done, uh, you know, for a Comic Con show or something like that. It's weird. It's like there's this like strange cognitive dissonance. So, anyways, that's my thought. I think healthy capitalism is the key to human health and to the health of civilization. And I think also, in order for capitalism to be healthy, is we need morality. And I think I would say that political correctness is not morality. Political correctness is a prescription. It's a prescription when people don't have morality. So so then political correctness comes up. Like, you can't say these words, instead of when you have morality, you know in your heart, hey, I'm not I don't say offensive things to other human beings because you know I'm a human being. And with morality, you also understand some people are going to make a mistake. You say, I hate blue shirts. And maybe that really hurts somebody who makes blue shirts and they're deeply offended, and you have to apologize. Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know you specialize in making blue shirts. I'm sorry I said I hate blue shirts. Um, so, with morality, that means, yeah, you make mistakes and you speak up, you make apologies, you make amends. Um, so, so that is my thought on um, the value of capitalism, and that in order for capitalism to work, we have to have morality. And um, and with morality, it means we're gonna, we make some mistakes, but of course, we don't permit egregious, ongoing, horrible mistakes to keep being perpetuated. So that's my thoughts on socialism, capitalism, and the necessity of morality with understanding that we all make mistakes. Thanks for watching.